Right. We are live.
Good morning.
Morning, afternoon.
Oh, it is afternoon.
It is afternoon for me, especially. It's like 3 p.m. Okay.
Your day's almost over.
I know. Actually, that's kind of sad. I don't want the day to be over because it's like 85 degrees outside, which is very uncommon.
It's
In
pouring here. It was 90 degrees here last week. So, yeah, we're getting rain for the next 24 hours.
Oh my gosh.
hmm
Is that no, that's not common, right?
No, not for now. No, we're usually finished with the rain by now. We need it, but we just don't usually get it. So,
Right, because of wildfires and
hmm
yeah, crazy. Um, so I'm so excited to finally meet you guys.
Same.
It's the week of National Healthcare Decisions Day, and we've partnered with the Conversation Project to really promote this day and promote caregivers, but family members, and really anyone having these sort of difficult but extremely important conversations with their loved ones
Sure.
about what do you want, how do you want it done. And I just actually looked on your website through the pre-planning.
hmm
That's incredible. Like
Yeah.
it goes through every step.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of stuff that people don't think about, but obviously very important.
Yeah. It's just like it blows my mind because I mean, I am a caregiver for my dad, and it's been 4 years, but like I still only have an idea of what he wants.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. So, tell me like tell me about Morgan Oaks and just tell me about it and like what it feels like to be there.
You want to go?
Yeah,
Go for
sure.
it.
Morgan Oaks Eternal Preserve is an all green burial cemetery. So, as opposed to a traditional cemetery, we are developed more like a park like setting. We have walking trails throughout the property. We have a lot of wildlife. We actually have about 40 acres or so of the property that we are leaving untouched for the wildlife preserve and habitat. Lots of natural wildflowers, mature oak trees, beautiful grasses. We've planted wheat. We keep it clean and tidy, and but we don't manicure. We don't do pesticides, herbicides, any of that. So there, with that said, there's also no embalming if people are burying a full body, and just trying to keep things as natural, beautiful, and peaceful as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I I'm interested to hear more about the no embalming and really what is green burial and what are the sort of main characteristics that make a green burial.
Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
No. So green burial is just no toxins, nothing going back into the ground. So traditional burials put a lot of pollutants back into the environment by the heavy metals, the caskets, the vaults, concretes, all that stuff that's going back in, the embalming liquid, all that goes back into the earth. And so over time, it's creating pollutants back into the earth, much more than I think we actually think about. And so green burial allows for none of that. You can be buried in a shroud, a wicker casket, anything that's biodegradable. So once you are laid to rest, basically, you're just going back to be with the earth. And so you don't need the embalming, you don't need the vaults, you don't need all of that extra stuff. And so not only is it helping cut back on toxins, but it's also cutting back on the cost. because we don't have, you know, your big, huge caskets. We don't have the big tombstones. We don't have all of that. And so it's really just far less for families to think about, for them to plan for, and for them to pay for. And, you know, when Sheena talked a lot about what Morgan Oaks is too, I think one of the biggest things is it's peaceful, it's serene. It's a place where you want to go visit. Whereas I know for me, traditional cemeteries bring that aura of sadness, depression. They're dark, they're gloomy.
They're scary, even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary image of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you come to Morgan Oaks, you're excited. It's beautiful. You could bring your dogs to walk with you. You can, you know, grab a cup of coffee. You can, you know, walk the trails. And we want it to be welcoming. We want the community to come out and enjoy, you know, just how peaceful and beautiful nature is.
Yeah.
One of the things I get a lot of when people come out, and whether this is a family member choosing or whether this is just visitors that come, they see it like, what is Morgan Oaks? And they come in, they're surprised when we say it's a cemetery, and they're like, wow, it's just beautiful. And then they tell people about it because they said they need to see it to believe it. They can't, and a picture doesn't really do it justice. It's when they're out there amongst just the grasses and they're, you know, the jackrabbits and the birds and the beautiful views, the sunsets. They said they were glad that they came out, and they needed to come out to understand it and to see it. And they still leave saying, this is so beautiful. This does not feel like a cemetery. I actually enjoy being here.
Yeah. It's such a difference. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, for others who do have a traditional, you know, gravestone that they visit, I'm not saying that that's wrong or bad. But I mean, it's got to be a completely different experience going to visit. So if there aren't gravestones, do you have markers, or is there like a GPS situation?
Yeah.
All of the above. So, and we actually do allow, and even if you look up Green Burial or Green Cemetery, you can have a small marker that's flush with the ground. So that's an option for families, but they certainly don't have to. We are GPS, all of it's done on coordinates like that. So they get that with their invoice, as well as there are round silver markers every number of feet out there that tells which row and which section or space you are. So it makes it easy still for people to find who they're looking for. Plus, obviously, we have all of that information recorded. So,
right. Like, it's not like you just don't know who's out there. We know
there. Yeah, it's all plotted and developed. Very, very well. And one of the things that's very unique to our cemetery is families can actually purchase an oak tree. It's called a tree memorial estate. So as opposed to leaving a big headstone or a marker, that's their tree. That's their legacy. They are then buried beneath the tree. They're help fertilize the tree as it grows. These trees are around for 400 to 600 years. So I think it's just an amazing way to kind of be remembered and to kind of leave a very small carbon footprint, but yet a beautiful big oak tree.
Yeah, a contribution to nature rather than sort of taking from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is so, I think that's so incredible, because it's a tree is a living thing. Yeah. And so it's almost like another living creature or creation being that you can like literally be a tree hugger and like
yes
your tree and like feel connected.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys get to witness that? Like, when families come to visit, or do families have ceremonies on site?
Yeah. So we have a couple of options. We have a graveside option so the families can do a graveside service. So whatever that looks like for them. For some people, we just opened our veterans section. So we had a veterans memorial 2 weekends ago. So they did, they came out, the Air Force came out, they did all of that stuff, taps, everything. So that's at the grave. And then we have a fireside pit, and we also have a patio for celebration of life. We actually did my father's celebration of life there, and it was just like, it was beautiful. I mean, you can see
Really?
it, all in like 160 acres. So you're sitting on a patio and just seeing everything. And so that really is amazing. A lot of our families, like I said, do the fireside pit. And we've had a lot of families do that in the evening so they could watch the sunset, because our property has beautiful views of the sunset and sunrise, but that's early. So we don't typically have, but we do have all types of, I mean, they can do whatever they want there on the property.
That's incredible that there's more of it seems like there's more of a sense of celebration, or, not that you want your loved one to die necessarily, but, it's a fact of life, and it doesn't have to be so dark. I
Sure.
think, in terms of mental health, and we've talked a lot about death wellness
Mhm.
and grief wellness. So, like, we cultivate wellness in every other area of our lives as human beings, except death.
Yeah.
And death is a certainty, for all of us. And but it's still taboo, I think.
Yeah, I think that, there's that stigma around talking about death or dying, and it makes people feel uncomfortable. Whereas I know that, people plan their weddings, they plan their baby showers, they plan anniversaries. Everyone's going to die. I mean, I'm not stating anything that, people don't
Not
already
new.
know. So, and we have a young boy buried on our site, and his mom had said that it had just come up after they had gone to their grandmother's traditional funeral, and her son had turned to her and he said, "I don't want any of that." And, she said she wouldn't have known if they didn't talk about it. But so she knew exactly what he wanted. He was very environmentally conscious. And so when he passed away very suddenly and tragically, his mom just knew, though. And she said she's so glad that she did, because she would have done all of the other things. I have an 18-year-old, I have a 17-year-old, and I know what they want. And we talk about it, and they know what I want. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And the research I've done and in talking to people, it actually gives them a sense of relief in a way, because you kind of have these, oh my God, I don't want to bring it up, and I don't know what to do. But now, I mean, people need to plan. And so their wishes are known. Their care at the end of life is known, their choices are known. And I think for everybody it's individual, but I think having a plan, or at least just having a conversation about it, I think it's healthy.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Um, I think that helps to take away the stigma, just promoting conversation, open conversation. And if this makes us feel uncomfortable, oh, like, I feel uncomfortable, I wonder why. Maybe we can talk about it and explore that, and, get to the root of it. I mean, it's just so much better for our mental health, and for, I mean, as a society as a whole. I mean, that's amazing that you know what your kids want.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes perfect sense though. It's like, why wouldn't you have those conversations?
Yeah, I agree. I lost my dad at a very young age, and we just did what we thought we were supposed to do. And you buy the casket with all the fancy stuff, and you get, you know, a fancy headstone, or you just, but you don't think about it because this is what you're just, in a way supposed to do. But there shouldn't be any supposed to. There's lots of people with lots of different wishes and thoughts. And I think it's important also that when you're talking to somebody, and if they want that, $50,000 traditional funeral or celebration, that's wonderful. That's what they want. That's their choice. That's, their vision. And, to keep bias out of it, I think a lot of people shy away from what they want because it won't align with what the rest of their family think. But it's okay for everybody to have different ideas of what they want when, that time comes.
Totally. That's so true. Like, tradition plays a role, even though it's not really tradition. Like, and I'm trying to keep bias out of it too. But I think, like, in the iAlly community, we are younger caregivers, and basically the rules and traditions and the status quo, none of that works for us. Like, all of those systems have failed us. So we're very much, I think, questioning the way things are. And also we're, as a generation, we're very environmentally conscious, and we want to save money.
Yeah.
So I think I just am such a fan. I want to be in a beautiful location, a part of a circle of life. So
Yeah, awesome.
yeah.
I think too, just go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, just in the whole area of like saving money, I think it's so important too, having this conversation about death and what they want so that people can pre-plan, right? Like, nobody wants to be in their last moments saying, okay, what do we do with you when this, happens? And that's where I was with my dad in June, was we didn't have anything planned. And so it was literally asking in the final moments, like a rush of, what do you want to do? Well, then there's also the idea of, well, he didn't have anything in place. So guess the financial responsibility lands on the family. Instead of, had they planned it in the beginning, you can kind of save for that and plan for that and prepare for that. If families are already grieving, if it's sudden, the last thing you want to do is have conversations now that are even more taboo. And now you have to talk about money with it as someone's passing, right? So I think it's just important to open up that conversation. And I think until you've, kind of heard something about it and know the importance, I never talked about it with my family until my dad got sick. And then it was like, now I talk about it with everybody. Like, every person I meet, I'm like, do you have a will? Do you have a trust? Do you have your plans made? Like, what do we need to do? I think it's so important. And again, like you said, we're all going to end up there. So we might as well.
Yeah. That is so important. It's so important. And but it's so great that you're just openly, having those conversations and asking people, because that's the only way that we're going to, normalize these conversations and stop being afraid about what, like, our neighbors down the street think. It's like not even anyone that we are actually close to. I feel like I'm not actually worried about, like, what, my loved ones would think, but it's more like some invisible audience of, like, judgment people. Sure. And that's not real. So yeah, it's so important, especially as young caregivers. You're protecting yourself too from all of that you just said, the financial burden, the stress, like adding to the grief. So the planning is so important. And part of that is knowing the options,
Yep.
like
Exactly.
knowing that it doesn't have to be this image that we have in society somehow of the embalming. And I mean, what is like what is the history behind that? I feel like that's very like American or English or something. I don't know.
So green burial kind of used to be the way it was years and years ago. And then after the war is when all of, the soldiers, the military personnel, there had to be a way to preserve the bodies to get them back to their loved ones. So that's when all of the embalming stuff started happening for transportation purposes. And then it just kind of, people wanted, the viewings, and it was a better way to present the body. But you can actually do all of that without being embalmed. But yeah, like to go back to your question, that's kind of where it started, was after the war, when all of the soldiers were being taken home to their loved ones. There had to be a way to preserve that, and with the number of people that were killed or died during that time, that they started with the big headstones and to mark the graves. But now it's it's being said that a lot of these older cemeteries are kind of like landfills because of all of the formaldehyde and the lacquers, the copper, everything seeping into the groundwater, the soil. So yeah, that's why we've kind of trying to come full circle and having this cemetery available. And we've had people call from out of state. We've had people from the Bay Area. We've had people from Southern California, because there are a number of cemeteries, traditional cemeteries, that have green burial portions, I guess you could say. But this is the first all green cemetery in this area. So.
Wow. So there are also, do people also scatter ashes?
So so they can scatter ashes into the plot in their tree. We don't have a scattering garden, but we do you can scatter it. You don't have to put it in an urn if you don't want to.
Okay, I see. Okay. But there are urns that are biodegradable.
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of choices out there.
And they're beautiful. Really beautiful. It's not just some people choose a cardboard box, and that's totally fine. That's the biodegradable. But the biodegradable urns that are available that you can purchase are really beautiful.
It's so great to have. It's just exciting to have different options available. So let's see. I want to ask you. Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so what drew you guys to green burial, and what makes you both passionate about green burial?
Go first.
Okay, yeah. I think that as a nature lover, an animal lover, I have kids. So what we're doing, I'm leaving for them and grandkids. And with everything else, global warming and pollution, it just seemed normal. I don't know if that's the right word. It just seemed natural. It seemed normal. And for me, it just seemed like a better idea. Protecting the environment. This is where we live. This is where our kids live, our grandkids, and everybody else. So just trying to leave as minimal carbon footprint as possible is what drew me to it. When I'll be honest, I didn't even know that this was available when I first, got into this. And then the more I looked at it and read about it, and it just aligned with everything that I love and believe in, it was kind of a perfect fit.
Yeah, I would say for me, I didn't know it existed either. And I would say in the beginning, I wasn't passionate one way or the other. But once I lost my dad in June and went through the death process and everything that comes after it, I'm super passionate, not only one about helping families, but providing an affordable way for them, a peaceful way for them to grieve. And, Morgan Oaks is one of the only green burial properties I visited. I've looked at others, but entering that property, knowing that your loved one is being laid to rest in such a place it releases a lot of the grief, the guilt, stuff that I had. And so, yes, it's green. And I think that's amazing for the environment. And so I'm super passionate about that, but I'm passionate about all the things that come with Morgan Oaks specifically, and how much we're doing for the community here locally, outside of just burying their loved ones and leaving a legacy. We are doing so much more. We just had a fundraiser for one of our families that lost their parents unexpectedly. So it's this community thing. And this legacy is really kind of where I get drawn into, and just helping families through this time. And again, like Sheena said, removing all of that stuff from the environment and just providing this great way to an option for families, I think is so awesome.
I totally felt some things that you said. That's so interesting that you actually have been through the grieving process, and you can actually say that this helped you, that doing a green burial helped you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. When you talk with families, do you share that?
Always. Yeah. I mean, I think being relatable is probably one of the best things, is that families know I know what they're going through. And if they haven't lost a loved one, how can I help them not go through some of the ugly things that I had to go through, right? The lack of pre-planning, and so it is nice to be able to share. The gentleman that we buried last weekend, he was, died of cancer as well. And that's how my dad died. And so I was able to have this relationship and this bond with his son. And I just think that's lasting, and I'm speaking for Morgan Oaks, but, the bond and relationship and connection we build with our customers and our clients is most important. And so I feel like there's that really great bond. A lot of my clients call me, they call Sheena. And so having that relationship has been huge too. And they trust us, right? If we say, oh, this is a good idea or whatever, there's that trust built too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think kind of, what Steph had said, she had a great experience, with Morgan Oaks after her father passed. And I had a horrible experience as a child when my dad passed, because I remember all of the things and I hated it. So I just knew, I didn't know about green burial. I just knew I didn't want any of that. So I think, having that experience also made me realize that this, once I found it, this is exactly what I wanted.
Wow. That's incredible. So using your negative experience and using your positive experience it's equally helpful. I'm so sorry about your dad's, by the way.
Thank you.
I know how it feels to have a sick dad. So, and the same thing about, trying to just save other people from making the mistakes I made and wasting the time I wasted, or, just some of the stress that I went through. That's what it's all about. It's just using your experience to try to alleviate the experience of others. That's really beautiful.
I share some of the things my clients have said to me as well, because they have said the best gift that their mom has left them, or their grandma, or whoever it was that passed, was having a plan, because everything is in a folder, or in a trust. They know exactly what they want, and they had said, I can't imagine having to deal with that and at this time. And so the best thing that they ever did for me was having a plan. So, and I think, because when some people, when we're at events or something, they'll come over, and when they realize what, our booth is or what we're talking about, they're like, oh God, no, like my kids can do that, or my, whatever. So I do share some of that with them if I can engage them in a conversation, and
Yeah.
it's not making them feel bad or guilty. That's not what it's about. They still have the stigma surrounding death, that it's, it always has a negative connotation. And then, a lot of times we get into great conversations, and families share a sense of relief, and that there were no regrets after, because they, God, I hope this is okay. I hope this is what mom would have wanted, or dad, or grandma, or grandpa. And they're like, no, this is exactly what they wanted. And I'm so relieved.
Yes. And it can prompt conversations that are so fulfilling if you can do it. The conversations can be intimate, and they can be memories that you have forever.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I mean, just knowing how overwhelmed caregivers are in general.
Exactly.
I mean, having to make a decision in a time of grief is like virtually impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So plan.
Yes. Yes.
We agree.
Amen.
I have no idea what time it is.
12:32.
12:30. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see. So we've talked about the cost. The cost is significantly different.
About a third less than a traditional burial. So
Wow.
then you also don't have all the upsell, right? So like a lot of times when you go places, I know when I went and dealt with my dad's stuff initially, it was like, well, you have to do this, and this costs this, and you need this, and you need this. And it was like, you don't need all of that. And so we don't have all the upsell. So it's literally just, pretty basic and a third of the cost.
It's so important to get that message out there.
Yeah.
What about religion? Do you have different religious people who are open to green burial, or do you have like religious ceremonies? I mean, I know that like there's spiritual, but then there's like religious, and some religions have very strict principles about death. So what has that been like?
We, and like Stephanie had said earlier on, we kind of allow families to have whatever kind of ceremony, whether it be a priest, a rabbi, music. We've had bagpipes, we've had doves, I mean, it's really up to the family. And we also have plots that face all different directions, because for some religions that's very important. And there are a lot of traditions associated with different religions. And what we're finding, after I've spoken to some younger people, the younger generation of these, groups or religions, is they don't want what they're supposed to have. They like, it's not important to them, but it's important to their family. So they feel like they, don't want to, make mom upset or whatever. But and that's why we do allow whatever ceremony, whatever, faith, whatever they would like to have at the cemetery.
That's great because it's kind of meeting people where they are.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, okay, you have trails. You have like, tell me about the trails.
So we have just over 3 miles of walking trails. So the community can come out. It's open sunrise to sunset. They can walk the trail. They can bike the trail. I mean, they're open. So looks like a park. I mean, so you could literally come out there and just get your workout, visit your
Wow.
loved one, picnic, whatever.
I love it. Wow. So, and it's how many acres in all?
160 total.
Wow.
Yeah.
How often do you guys go from like end to end? Like how often?
I don't typically go to the backside very often. We just kind of rotate through
Yeah.
the front side, I would
Yeah.
say pretty regularly. But I mean, not that there's anything on the backside.
No.
Like it's just that it's not developed yet.
Yeah.
So we stay
I
more towards the front where it's all developed, where our internment areas are. But
Mm-hmm.
the backside of the property is beautiful. There's just no purpose in going back there right
Yeah.
now.
There will be. It's
Wow.
there's a lot of interest, and as we get busier and busier and more interest, we develop more areas and open up more
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
So if there's like, if there's one thing that you would want to leave people with about Morgan Oaks, about Green Burial, what would it be?
I would say just overall planning, know your options. Whether Morgan Oaks is where they are like, oh my gosh, I love it. I want to end up there. Ask questions, go visit the website, just see what's out there so that hey, in my state or in my city, that doesn't exist. And if that's something you're super passionate about, then, come visit Morgan Oaks. We have tons of virtual tours so you could kind of see the whole property virtually. We had somebody just recently call from Florida. She's like, we don't have this in Florida, so I want to be delivered to you when the time comes. So just because you don't live in California or in our location doesn't mean it can't be the perfect place for you.
I was actually going to say exactly what Steph had said, is that go online and look at the tours and come visit us. It's okay if it's not for you. We still would love to show you the area. Just come out for a walk. It's an option. It's a different option. I think I had said, when I had said earlier that I haven't had anybody who has said, I don't like it here. It may not be where they want to rest, but everybody says this is way more beautiful than I expected, way more peaceful, way more serene. Doesn't feel like a cemetery. I love being out here. So it's just all been positive.
It's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this.
Thank you to you and your community and all your viewers.
Absolutely.
It's been awesome.
Thank you. I love partnering with you guys.
We're excited.
Yeah. So happy National Healthcare Decision Day week.
Everyone go talk to their family.
Yeah. And we'll do this again soon sometime.
Sounds
good. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.